Hello everyone, and welcome back to this tutorial on lists in Python. In this video, we'll be discussing what lists are, how to create them, and some of the basic things you can do with them. So what is a list in Python? A list is a collection of elements which can be of any type, such as integers, strings, booleans, or even other lists, and more. Lists are one of the most versatile and useful data structures in Python, and they allow us to store and manipulate data in a variety of ways. They are mutable data structures, which means we can modify the data they hold. Individual elements can be replaced, and other elements can be changed even after the list has been created. And if you are coming from other programming languages, lists are very similar to arrays. So let's get started by creating a simple list in Python. We will go ahead and declare our variable name numbers here. And to create a list, use the open and close square brackets, or you can type list with open and close parentheses. This will create an empty list. But for now, we're just going to go with the open and close brackets so we can add some values in there. Each element in a list will be separated by commas. So whatever we want to put in here, we'll go ahead and put a bunch of numbers. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There are 5 elements in this list, and they're all separated by a comma. And this is how you create a list in Python. So that's cool and all, but what can we do with it? Well, we can access individual elements of the list using their index, which is their position. List indexes are from left to right, starting from the number 0. For example, if we want to access the first element of the numbers list, we use the index 0 like this. This will give us the first value in this list here. So we can go ahead and use the built-in print function in Python and run it, and we get the number 1, which is the first element in our list. We can also use negative indices to access elements from the end of the list. For example, to access the last element in the list, we will just type -1. If we increase to, let's say, -2, it will give us the second to the last element in the list, and so on. We can also assign new values to the index in the list. For example, if we type in numbers of 0, which is the first index, and we set it equal to whatever value we want to, so let's just say new number here. Then we go ahead and print out our list. You can see that it did replace the first element of 1 right here with our string of new number. If you try to put an index that is larger than the amount of elements in the list, it will actually throw an error. So if we put 99 here and we go ahead and run it, it does throw an index error because the list assignment index is out of the range of the list. And the list only has 5 elements in it, so if we try to access the 99th, it will throw an error. Another cool thing we can do with lists is we can do something called slicing. And slicing is where we can take a subset of the list, do other operations on it, or we can assign new values using the list subset. So an example of this is when we go into the square brackets accessing the list, we can specify a start and an end index. The start index is inclusive, meaning it will get the value at that index. And the end index is exclusive, meaning it will not get the actual value at that index. It gets the value right before that. So here's an example. We'll say 0 followed by a colon, and we can say 2. And then whenever we go ahead and run it, we can see it gets a subset of our actual numbers list of 1 and 2. Even though it's accessing indexes 0 through 2, which here it's 0, 1, and 2, since this is exclusive for the second value, we're only getting these first 2. Another thing we can do with this is since we know we're returning a list of size 2 with 2 elements, we can now assign it a new list of, let's say, 9 and 7. And if we go ahead and run it, we're actually replacing the first 2 values with our new values. Another thing is if you don't provide a start and end index, then it will just return the entire list. This is really useful for making copies of the list, so you can then do other modifications to it. So whenever we go ahead and run this, we can see that it does print out the entire list down here. But another cool thing is we can actually provide the step value, which is essentially saying after that first value you get, how many values should we go through before we get the next one? So an example of this is if we add another colon and we add like a number 2, and we go ahead and run it, we can see that it does print out the list of 1, 3, and 5. So it does get this first value, and then it takes 2 steps. So it goes 1, 2, gets that third value, and then it goes 1, 2, and gets that value. If we were to change this to 3, and we go ahead and run it, it only puts out 1, 4 because it's 1 and then 1, 2, 3. It gets this value, and then there's not another value after that that's in the third step. So another cool thing is if you were to put a negative number in here, you can actually flip the list around. So if we take this and we put a -1, we can go ahead and run it, and we get the list in reverse order. It's a really easy way to reverse a list in Python. And we can specify some other numbers. So say like we want to take the 4th index all the way to the 2nd index. And we'll go ahead and run it, and we do just get the values of 5 and 4. Because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 starts right here and goes down to 3 and then 2, but since this is exclusive, it does not include this value, and we only get 4 and 5. Another cool thing is lists aren't only limited to one data type. We can actually specify strings or even other lists inside this list. So for example, we can make another list with 1, 2, and 3 in the 4th position. And if we do go and run it, we can see that it does print out this extra list in here, along with our string value of 3. And this isn't limited to just lists. We can use other data types that we'll talk about in later videos. So another cool thing is we can see if values are in a list using the in keyword in Python. So for example, if we take 1 in numbers, we can see if this value of 1 is inside our numbers list. If we go ahead and run it, we do see that it does return true. If we were to take this and say, is -1 in this list, and we run it, we see it returns false. This will be used more for conditions later on, but just something useful to know for now. Another cool thing we can do with lists is append or add elements to the end of them. To add an element to the end of the list, we can use the append method. We'll just type .append. We can put whatever else we want in here, so we'll just go ahead and put 6. And whenever we run it, you can see our list is now 1 through 6 instead of just 1 through 5. So we added the number 6 to the end of our list. We can also insert an element at a specific index using the insert method. So instead of append right here, we'll type insert, and the first argument you pass to it is the position in the list that you want to insert it. So for example, we'll pass the number 2 for index number 2, and then we want to put the number 6 there. So whenever we run this, we get 1, 2, 6, 3, 4, 5, and that's because starting from 0 on the left side, it's 0, 1, index 2 that we just added it, 3, 4, 5. We can also remove elements from a list using the remove method. So an example of how to do this is we'll type .remove for our list, and open and close parentheses, we'll type a number, or whatever element we want to remove. So for this case, we'll remove the number 3, and whenever we run it, we now have a list with 1, 2, 4, and 5, and you can see that 3 had gotten removed since that's what we removed. The remove method will remove the first occurrence of this. So for example, if we add another 3 at the end here and we run this, the second 3 is still there just because it only removes the first 3. Another cool thing with lists is we can actually merge lists together by extending it. So for example here, if we have a variable called other, and we make it equal to a list of 6, 7, 8, and 9, we can then type numbers.extend and this other list, and whenever we run it, it now has the new list from 1 through 9, combining both lists together. Lists also have a neat built-in feature where you can count the number of times an element is in a list. So for this case, we have a variable called count, and we're setting it equal to numbers.count of 3. This will return us the number of times that 3 appears in the list that we're trying to count. If we run this, this should print out 2 since there are 2 3s in our list, and you can see that it does. So another cool thing we can do is we can pop specific indexes of the list and get that value out. So for example here, we'll have a variable named remove element, and we'll set it equal to numbers.pop of position 1, which is the second element in the list. And we'll go ahead and print out the element and the numbers, and we'll go ahead and run it. And you can see that it did remove the number 2, which is in the first index of the list. And now our list does not have the element that was previously at position 1. Another really handy feature is we can use the built-in length function that Python has to get the length of the list. Here's an example. We'll set a variable named length and set it equal to len open and close parentheses of whatever it is we want to put inside. So in this case, our list. And then we'll go ahead and print this out. And whenever we run it, we get the length of our numbers list is 5, since there are 5 elements in there. So if we add another element in here, like 6, and we run it again, we now get the length of it being 6. And that's it for this tutorial on lists in Python. We've covered what lists are, how to create them, and some of the basic things you can do with them. Lists are a powerful tool in Python, and they're used extensively in programming. So it's important to understand how to work with them. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more, and we'll see you next time.